Anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital es
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は、
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morförrätter än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula giderim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is sword, and that also means elephant.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
ça, ça, c'est ça, que c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyperpolyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nej. Man. Igen. Jo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bambas. Okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo. Io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma Poi, dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io.
I buy a computer or what? Here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, but sounds vaguely like Hogun and the Hok in Hogun in Korean or Waku in Japanese, and that's because it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me.
Un chasseur, ça son chassé, ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idiomas, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schwalben. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos.
Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Boyd, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cocine da boy. Posso Milao. Pote. Buenese. Proteine. Totopolo. In the designated chicken eating area, obviously.
Okay, still 3 times I have to defeat him. And I don't have a whole lot of health left.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time. And we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Monsieur. Livre. Liwe livla.
Mustan kissan paksut posket.
맞아요. Yeah. Sí. Eso sí. 맞아요. 그렇지. Inter. Počkej. Sí.
Track 6.
Aspri petrax es aspri apton iliox ex asproteri. Aspri petrax es aspri apton iliox ex asproteri.
Encoginio panas.
Oh boy.
Ferra verda ferra ferda vetri.
هقب هفد
Perfect.
هفد
Perfect.
هفد هفد هق هق هق
Саша
А Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку. А Саша по шоссе несла сушку на счастье и сосала сушку.
mwalimu
Ah, this is Arabic. And it's from Muallim.
Juma ni mwalimu mke.
Ирак чима в чипах чемп чавю ченчи чини. Чирак чима в чипа да, чирак чима в чипцах чемп чавю ченчи чини. Акакит алшит. Хикрин. Акакит алши хикрин. Акакит алши хикринепс.
Oh, things to do cat sounds. Meow and the pictures of the fish. That's they were proud.
Sööpel. Kubu. Üritavad. Puraista. Omena.
Are in the city center. And it's got some interesting aspects to it.
여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까?
Countries or living things.
兄の名前は
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So, anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Lo que pasa es que bueno, la manera, y esto se ve en tantos lugares, no es cuestión regional, sino más bien de un problema fundamental de la pedagogía oficial de los idiomas extranjeros, y que la manera en que se enseñan en tantos lugares, en las clases, en el colegio, no tiene nada que ver con el estado actual de la investigación sobre lo que se llama adquisición de idioma.
Doesn't, you can try something else.
In fact, I would say often you really know you're getting it with languages if you can't really explain why something's right, but you just bloody well know it's right. Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So, anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は、
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula giderim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is squab, and that also means elephant.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, c'est ça, che c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyper Polyglotting avec Élise. Moi, c'est Élise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique et de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Come on. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bambas. Bamba, okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente... è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo. Io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io.
I buy a computer or what? Here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, fuck sounds vaguely like Hogun and the Hok in Hogun in Korean or Waku in Japanese, and that means it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I'm Elise, translator, writer, and editor with 20 working languages, and this is the stream where we're going to look at some of the best and not so best of language learning YouTube and play a bit of chess, which I haven't done in a while. I think I'm going to start out with some classical, but first I'm going to start out with making sure that this is actually going to display properly, because I have got it all optimized for GeoGuessr and not chess. How's everybody doing, chat? Okay. Let me just adjust that a little bit because my head's kind of in the way. Okay, we've got a Sicilian on the board. Setup this is what Rithvik is trying to do, well, potentially, is take that pawn, and that's annoying. Oh no, wait, actually there's no need to worry about, oh well, yes there is, because I'm moving that bishop on the next move. So yeah, there we go. Oh, that's annoying. Okay, let's see, what are my options here? So I can take here, then white takes back the bishop and is attacking my rook. And that sucks. Yeah, because I think the bishop's going to end up being a pretty good piece. Or I can just move here. So I think I'm just going to do that. I can do an artificial castle soon enough anyway. with the goal of king there, rook there, king down. Okay. Okay, do I need to do anything about this right now? I mean, this is potentially coming, or this. That's kind of annoying. I think I could just... Yeah. I mean, the other irritation here that we have to deal with is bishop here. Also, my knight is pinned. Well, there's also this is kind of neat. Okay, so... no. Pawn here. Knight takes. Rook takes, queen takes, and I'm up, but I don't think that's likely to happen. Let's see if I can break this pin. That's not a terrible idea. Start with that. So now this is an option. Takes... the sound of an excitable dog. Of course, white hasn't castled yet either. Oh, but now... Oh, well, no, I spoke too soon. White is now castled. Okay. And I ended up losing that bishop. Still think I'm not bad. Although, now this becomes a little bit more annoying, I think. So the first thing we're going to do, I've got to find a way to get my light squared bishop into the game. Actually, here. This diagonal, like right now, this pawn is hanging. Okay, so what have we got here exactly? Candidate moves. So we go here, threatens this, but okay, the pawn takes, and actually then I think the queen, white's queen becomes a bit more of an annoyance because then there's no pawn blocking it. Hey there, Badger, how you doing? Okay, so that's an option. I mean... Okay, I mean, I could just move to this diagonal. Don't know that that's as good a diagonal for this bishop to be on, though. Okay, let's try this here. Let me see. Okay, so we go here. Ah, damn it. Okay, so we go here. Pawn takes, probably. Pawn, and then pawn takes. I guess bishop takes? And am I better? I don't think I'm better then, actually. I think I'm actually the opposite of better, so we're not going to do that. Try to expand over on my king side, on my queen side rather. I guess I could double up here. I mean, that has some appeal potentially. And I got the queen defending then. Yeah, that's not bad. Oh, okay. Thank you. That's an improvement. So now this pawn is hanging. This bishop is now getting significantly badified. Okay, this bishop is now hanging though. So let me see here. Batunons. Okay, yeah, I saw that coming. This becomes mildly irritating. I'm 2 pawns down now. Ew, yeah, no. Don't like that. What I also not entirely strictly keen on here. Hey, I've got this passed pawn I've got to watch out for, though it's going to land on a dark square. This bishop can't guard it, because it's a light squared bishop. We've got same colored bishops here. I think my rooks are a little bit better. I've got potentially fairly useful pawn structure as well. Actually, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to improve my pawn structure a little bit more. Come out ahead on material on this, I think. And this pawn is still guarded by the queen, so I'm good there. And this pawn is hanging. Okay. Now I gotta think about this a second, because problem is there's this white pass pawn here. Very advanced pass pawn. It is, on the other hand, an isolated pass pawn, but it's being supported by white's rook here on a1. So the question is, what do I do about it? And I think what I do about it is go here. You don't have to worry about diagonals too much. Yeah, queen might take there. Oh no, queen's not taken. Interesting. Okay, cool. Oh, no. Can't do that. Can't go here, because that just wins a rook for white. Yeah, so fuck that. And we've also got this problem. If I go on this, put my king on this diagonal, then we've got a fork. And white can also win a rook there, because take this pawn, and so that's no good. Absolutely no good. Hey, Riveroon, how you doing? So we gotta stay off that fucking diagonal. We gotta stay off the back rank, because that also wins white a rook. This is not a great position for me, I don't think, so far. I think this is definitely a suboptimal sort of position. I think my only move that does not immediately lose me a rook is right now h6, king h6, so we're gonna go king h6 and try to not lose me a rook. Meanwhile, that's added a defender to this square here. Okay, that is suboptimal. But what can I do here? I mean, I'm playing classical, and part of the reason I'm playing classical is it gives me a chance to give a deep think and also talk about this stuff, which is a definite improvement. Okay. So my problem here, I can't take this. I take this, I lose a rook. Is doop and doop. And and then I'm just down a rook, and that sucks. Down a rook is very sook. So we can't do that. I also want to protect this pawn, because that pawn is on a diagonal. Again, I can't have white attacking that rook either. Okay. Okay, what if queen takes here? No, that's shit. Okay, no, hang on. So queen takes here. I'm just doing an exchange sacrifice. Do one of those. So rook takes. Then I take here. Yeah, I think that might be something. Yeah, not too bad. If the stream quality seems better, it's because I now have a wired connection for it. Yeah. I mean, I'm down material, but at least I got a rook pair. I mean, I'm not down. I'm down a piece. I'm not down as far as I could be. My king is safe-ish. Okay, so the threat here takes, and I mean, there's no way I can really defend that. So I don't think I'm going to bother trying. My mom decided to replace her router because it was like 8 years old and it was time. This is going to be annoying, but I don't think there's a whole lot that can... Oh, fuck off. Oh, God, okay. This is not going well, actually. This is not going very well for me. And the worst part is I'm using most of my time. I mean, it's not like I'm making, like, extremely rash moves here. Oh, well, that was an extremely rash move, and it wasn't a great one. Okay, GG's. Okay, 新对手. Okay, playing white. Vaya que sí. Wait. Vaya que sí aborted the game, so we're off to look for a new opponent. Actually, I'm going to do 15 with an increment. For one thing, we might be able to find more opponents, and they might screw up more. They might be a bit more likely to screw up. It's an interesting video I think we're going to look at later on in this stream. So Luca Lampariello and various other people debate on like language learning methods and stuff. Okay, playing white, Looper 08. Is that short for Loperamod? I wonder. Waarschijnlijk niet. Nederlands. Okay, playing in English. Ooh, it's symmetrical English. That is one of the most annoying lines to play when you play an English opening. Let's see, can I still get the setup that I want? Which is going to be pawns on d3, c4, and e4. Okay, do I do anything about that? Yeah, I think I should. Okay, we have dueling fianchettos as well, with both of our light squared bishops facing off against each other. But on the other hand, I have a bit of an edge in development here, because look at this. We've got this rook, this knight, this bishop. The only thing that's really been developed at all are the knight and the light squared bishop and this knight here on c6. So that's not too bad. So, okay, like I'm going to castle sooner. King safety wise, I'm certainly in the lead at the moment. Not sure what this... move even is. Okay, so my pawn structure is basically where I want it. And the dark square bishop, black's dark square bishop, is also not in a great position because you've got this pawn blocking it. Okay, I'm just gonna castle. How are you and the creatures? Okay, have my other fianchetto set up. What have I got to watch out for? Well, I mean, really? Okay. Well, I think I'm actually looking pretty decent here. Especially moving this knight back and forth. Again, developmentally, we still got problems. This is a weakened kingside. I mean, annoying for me is this pawn here. Because what I want is a knight on d5. Because a knight on d5 is a monster. But I haven't got a knight on d5 just now. I mean, one thing I can do there is sort of preemptively kick that knight. Now it can't go back to g6 really. Although black can call my bluff there, yeah, because that does kind of mess up my pawn structure. One thing about knights is, because they're relatively short-range little buggers, you have to advance them to get maximum value out of them. Okay. That is a mild irritant, but it's not... Okay, what's it? Is it threatening anything, really? Is there any place that it can go from there that I would have a real problem with? Can't go here because the pawn takes. Can't go there because the pawn takes. Can't go here because the pawn takes. Can't go here because the bishop takes. Can't go here or here because the queen takes. So... is there anything I need to worry about in this context? Oh, actually, no, wait a second. There is one thing I need to worry about here. Because these two knights, rather, are both there. They can both go to F3, and then bishop takes, knight takes, and then this is a fork. Don't like being forked. Certainly don't like my queen being forked. So we're going to try to avoid that. Okay, what was that? F5. Okay, if I take, then I can put a knight on d5, and I'm kind of happy. It's also a discovery against the light squared bishop. Now we're looking at each other, both of the light squared bishops. But in both cases, it isn't a free bishop. I mean, because the knight can, the rook can take if I take there. I mean, like, what's that? Really? I do not know what the point of that was. Doesn't seem like a great move. Because now, bishop takes, pawn takes. Oh, wait a second. Okay, let me think about this. So I can also do knight takes. Knight takes also opens up my dark squared bishop a bit. Even though it does not actually threaten the rook. Yes, this isn't bad. That leaves me a piece up. Leaves me with kind of a dodgy king, but it leaves me a piece up. Is the rook kind of has to take back there, not just because I've just taken a knight, but because the rook is threatened there. The other rook on b8 is going to be threatened if I do that. So rook takes, king takes, and I win a knight. And pretty much anything else that happens also hangs that knight. Or hangs a knight, anyway. Knight d5, I've been hoping to play that for a while now. And black's time advantage. Oh fuck, I didn't see that. That sucked. That wasn't great. Can't believe I just did that. But now, see, now it's just a matter of figuring out a way to get compensation for an unintentional sacrifice. That's what we're doing now. We're looking for some compo. Okay. So. Oh, I think I get a free knight this way. Or I get a free, yeah, okay. There we go. Sometimes you look for some compo and you get some. Now I'm up a piece. That's how easy it can be sometimes. This is why never resign. Because look at that. Look at that. I blundered a whole piece. And then black went and blundered a whole piece too. And the time advantage is slowly moving to my side. At the very least, it's being neutralized. So, that's neat too. Again, this is why you don't resign when you fuck up like that. Because unless you're playing GMs, there's a very good chance whoever you play will fuck up roughly the same way. And sometimes it won't even take them that long. Okay. If I could open up this file, then we've got some really nasty little attacking possibilities. Okay. Okay, so I can't go here. I had thought about just trading queen since I'm up a rook. Well, I'm up most of a piece. But I can't do that with this rook there. What I can do is go here. Then I can go here with check and I can harass the king and maybe I get a fork out of it. Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting. So, here we go. King harassment. Okay, two options. I trade queens, then I think I'm just better. Or queen here, check. I mean, the only move at that point is queen to defend. Then I'm trading queens as well. I don't... Okay. Okay, I can go here, still offering this queen trade. If black takes, then I take back with check. Or I can do this. Really, black's gotta take this. So if black doesn't take this, then I go here, advance with check, and I've got a nice little promotion threat. One that can be blocked since it's a rook, it's a rook pawn. There are ways to get around it, but yeah, I mean, king h8, and then there's not a whole lot going on there. Meanwhile, okay. Black is clearly thinking about this. Ah, okay. Okay, so one option that I've got is, again, up here with check. I think that's what we'll do. Oh, so let's try bringing the king into the game a little bit. Oh, that's bad. That's bad. Please don't notice that. Thank you. Very nice of you not to have noticed that. There was a way to win. I had opened myself up to a fork that would have lost me a rook. I mean, if black takes, we just trade rooks, and then I'm just better, I think. I mean, the annoying thing, the pawn structure, actually... Oh, no, I'm okay. It's not a whole lot. So, I mean, there is this discovered check, but I do because if this bishop moves, then it's check. But I don't think there's a good place for this bishop to move, so I think that's just sort of a one-move annoyance. As long as I keep my king on the light squares, the bishop really can't threaten me. Yeah, see? I don't really give a shit about that. I can just go here. Still in the light squares, the bishop can't threaten. Now this bishop is actually threatened. I can just take this bishop. On the next move. And look at that. There's basically no time advantage left. Because we've got an increment on here. My increment is going to put me a little bit more on the front foot time-wise. Meanwhile, any move of the C or E pawns allows me to open up a file for my rook on d1, and that can potentially be very, very unfortunate for black, because then I can play rook d8. Ooh, yeah, see. Okay. Ah, tudo bem, tudo bem. E você? Okay. So, let's see. If I want to remaneuver my king without opening it up to the same annoying discovery, I think what I gotta do is go here. It's not great. It's not great because I really want to double up. I want to at least have the opportunity to double up, and right now, I don't. Ah, no que você trabalha? O que trabalho faz? Oh, okay. Now the advantage, the time advantage is just barely mine. And I'm still up a pawn. Okay. I mean, black... Yeah, black hasn't got any passed pawns. I haven't got any passed pawns either. Okay, what's the point of that move? I don't strictly think there is one. Okay, we're going to stay on the light squares. I'm trying to keep all my pieces on the light squares, because I don't want that bishop to be able to attack them. In this case, though, I'm not too worried. So the bishop can't really attack that. Bishop attacks that, then I just take the pawn. Yeah, kind of okay with that. Meanwhile, there's no longer anything... Okay, so now, really, this doubling up becomes a real threat. Actually, this is better, I think, because this pins the bishop. There, all my pawns are now on light squares. Oh no, that's not good. But it would have been worse. It would have been worse if Black had actually noticed that there was a chance to fork a rook with check. That wouldn't have been great. But that particular annoyance has been averted. Oh, I don't need to worry about that. My rook is actually defending there. Hey Sean, how you doing? What are you reading? I'm going pretty well. Donna Tartt. I'm not familiar with Donna Tartt. What's it about? Interesting. Oh, we're actually really kind of coming down to the wire on time already. So, what are we gonna do here? Wat gaan ons doen? want to do is double up here in a way that the bishop cannot threaten my rook. Yes, Bacchanal is a ceremony from the god of wine, Bacchus, also aka Dionysus. And it's all about getting shit-faced, basically. Yeah, it's an orgy with shit-facedness. It's an orgy of shit-facedness. Okay, this is not good. This is not good. This is really... Okay. I'm gonna have to sack this rook in order to achieve anything here. Okay, that's a safe spot for my king. The dark academia subculture, and now I'm kind of curious. I don't think I've actually... Maybe I've heard of it under a different name, I don't know. Oh, I've never heard of it thought of as called dark academia before. That just sounds like academia to me. Like tweed jackets with like fucking patches on them and stuff like that. Sort of classic professorial kind of look. I thought we were talking about like some sort of like academic but goth or something like that. But that's just academic but academic, really. Or say the reading room at Trinity College Dublin, the long reading room. I forget the exact name of it. It's the most amazing. You see it in like memes a lot. People post pictures of it on social media because it is like the definitive library. I've been to it and it is gorgeous. It is what you just want a library to be, really. I guess that's dark academia as opposed to dork academia then. Oh god, I've fucked this up so comprehensively at this point. That is deeply unfortunate because it was looking pretty good for a while. But there's still time. There's still time. Oh shit. No. It's not great. GG's, damn. That was looking good for a while. Okay, time for me to take a little bio break, and then I will be back and we're gonna look at a debate on language learning that looked interesting. Quick bio break, back in a sec. Hi, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. I am Elise, translator, editor, and writer with 20 working languages, and this is where we talk about languages and language learning and all sorts of other stuff, and we play games. This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital. 還元一級の先というのは、本当に誰も知らない字ばっかりでしょうね。私は
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Mordfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula gidelim. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is squab, and that also means elephant.
This is Elise with an update on the ongoing Inessa Armand translation project. We now have 37 of the 38 extant essays and speeches by Inessa Armand translated into English for the first time, and we are just short of the halfway mark on the fundraising progress as well. This enrichment of the English language Marxist canon has only been possible with your support, and it's been a real lifeline for me. So anyone who would like to support this project can find links in the description for how to do so, and everybody who has already supported it has my sincerest thanks.
Ça, c'est ça, che c'est ça, non ça, c'est ça. Sol chi sa che nulla sa, ne sa più di chi ne sa. Ecco.
Bonjour et bienvenue à Hyperpolyglotting avec Elise. Moi, c'est Elise, traductrice, éditrice et écrivain avec 20 ans de travail. Et ça, c'est la transmission en direct ou en jeu des jeux, surtout GeoGuessr en dernier temps. Et parle des langues, de la linguistique, de l'acquisition des langues.
10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Nej. Man. Igen. Ja. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bakva. Okay, Bakvas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon.
Sotto le frasche del capanno 4 gatti grossi stanno. Sotto 4 grossi sassi, 4 grossi e grassi gatti. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Un généreux déjeuner régénéré des généraux dégénérés. Facile. Sì, ecco, la gente è la cosa che mi dice la gente, sempre che scoprisce che quante lingue parlo, io sempre avevo l'impressione, diciamo, di che non era così, non era tan così, ma poi dopo di aver visto qualche poliglota in YouTube, una delle cose che avevo scoperte era giustamente che la metodologia usata da quella gente poliglota che non avevo mai conosciuta prima, era più o meno la stessa metodologia che usavo io.
I buy a computer or what? And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, what sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hok in Hogun in Korean or waku in Japanese, and that means it is the exact same kind of character.
Okay, let me see.
Un chasseur, ça son chassé, ses chassés sont son chien de chasse.
Der dicke Dach.
Okay, der dicke Dachdecker deckt dir dein Dach, drum dank dem dicken Dachdecker, dass der dicke Dachdecker dir dein Dach deckt. Hola y bienvenidos al directo de Hyperpolyglotting with Elise. Yo soy Elisa, traductora, escritora y editora y comunicadora social con más de 20 idiomas de trabajo. Y aquí vamos a estar jugando videojuegos, sobre todo GeoGuessr, y hablando de idioma, la mejor forma de aprenderlo y caleta más. Zwei Zwetschgenzweigen zwitscherten zwei tschechische Schwalben. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos.
Oh, I see. This is Diche Ishai Fui, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That's also.
Okay, and I'm back. And let's see. So here's the debate. Is Luca Lampariello, Richard Simcott, other Italian dude that I've seen Luca Lampariello do collabs with, and some other guy I don't recognize. Everything they are not telling you about language learning. And I'm always curious when I hear that they are not telling me something, because who's they? I mean, theoretically, it seems to me like there's, no matter what thing you come up with, that there would be some they not telling us. Just statistically, it seems probable. But I actually like to think that the they that's not telling us stuff is actually, in all cases, one non-binary person who's so powerful nobody dares speak their name. In any case, we're going to find out what this is about. Everybody in here is, except for the one person that I'm not sure, that I'm not familiar with. Let me see. So we've got, Luca, Stefano, that's the Italian dude that I saw, that Luca does collabs with. I saw them do tongue twisters. We watched it on stream a while back. Richard Simcott I've run into at polyglot events a couple of times. And let's see, Alex and David, I'm not familiar with either of them. But we're gonna find out what they have to say. It should be interesting. Now let me just make sure this is going to be... Yeah, okay. So when you say you watched that, are you talking about this debate? Or a discussion, or whatever it turns out to be?
We're live. Stage is yours, Alex.
All right. Well, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending upon where you're joining us from. Today is the official day of this polyglot debate. The panel is here. My name is Alex. I will be your host. And I'll do a quick little introduction for our prolific polyglot panel, and then we'll go over the agenda.
Nice alliteration there.
And we'll officially get into things. So, without further ado, I'd like to first introduce to you the San Diegan sensation, whose guns are blazing and his German is, well, amazing. David Allen Martin II.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, that's right. I think we actually watched a collab between Luca and him, like last week, or maybe the week before, now that I'm thinking of it. And now I'm realizing I need to get that chat widget where I can actually see what's going on with the video full screened. No, wrong thing. Hyper chat widget. New window. Always on top. There we go. Yes, okay, if he's the person I'm thinking he is, and I think he is, yeah, his German is very good. Yeah.
Next up is the Roman, whose accents are smoking more so than a hookah. Everyone's favorite Lampariello, Luca.
Yeah.
And following up is the one who never had a philological master plan, and yet today is considered.
I'm loving these introductions.
Today's most multilingual man, Richard Simcott.
Hello.
Yeah, I mean, and I would have to say, there's definitely that's a pretty fair characterization. He has quite a few languages.
And last but not least is the Milanese beast, or the Milanese mad scientist, who rules over languages, interpretation, and translation with a gentle fist. Stefano Swigo.
Okay, so we got both ends. We've got northern and southern Italy covered. Neat. And Lampariello, I think, is a Neapolitan surname. That sort of diminutive Iello is something you see a lot in Neapolitan. So.
Hi guys, hi everyone.
All right, so now that you know our panel, we'll go over the agenda for today, which is we'll get to introduce, learn more about these individual guests in just a moment. Then we'll warm them up with some gentle questions to get these argumentative juices going. After that, we're gonna have a debate about some of the most hot topic issues within language learning, from how much grammar do you have to study deliberately to are native accents that important, and maybe even how to learn multiple languages at the same time.
Okay.
And then the final 30 to 45
interesting
minutes of
topics
today's session
all
will be dedicated to you, the audience, and your burning questions. So type them in the chat. I'll keep track of them. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to know our panel here, and we will start with our lovely, handsome devil from Germany, Mr. David Allen Martin. Please tell us, who are you, what are you actively learning, which languages, and a
great
fun fact
initials,
about your learning process.
They read out to DAB.
Sure. So, first of all, thank you, Alex, for doing that wonderful presentation, introduction. I am in Germany, but I'm not from Germany. I'm from San Diego, California, as you already said. But I've been living in Germany for the past 20 years. I am a translator of primarily German, Spanish, and English. I'm a language teacher, and
those are like my three main target languages.
Generally just somebody who's really interested in helping people to learn languages faster. I myself am currently improving my Polish because I'm going to be meeting up with two of these beautiful gentlemen next week in Krakow in Poland.
I'm going to skip ahead a bit because I want to get to the actual topics.
you're someone who's very relatable because as a father of children as well, it can get difficult to squeeze language learning, especially if you are a casual language learner, into your daily life. So thank you for the openness and the honesty there about, hey, these last, few years haven't been the greatest in terms of actually learning languages. Excellent, excellent. So now we go to Richard. Tell us, biggest failure in language learning.
I think the first big thing that I found I just didn't take to was when I was learning Georgian. I studied it for a year at Malmö University in Sweden, and typically I was used to being the sort of person that had come out of a year of studies, and I'd be able to at least string a sentence together. And whilst I was able to understand...
I'm fascinated by the fact that he went to Sweden to study Georgian. Also, interesting to know that you could go to Sweden and study Georgian.
Mechanics of how it worked, from what I was taught, I wasn't able to really put the language together in any way that...
Yeah, I'm guessing, I'm interested, I hope he gets into, like, how this was taught, because a lot of Georgian teaching materials, Georgian is a language I worked on and off myself. Mevt ablob kartuliena, but a lot of it gets really obsessive about the grammar because Georgian is a language of much grammar. There's all sorts of grammatical stuff going on. So, and I'm wondering, was this a very grammar heavy class where you're learning about the split ergativity and the cases and the screeves and all that stuff, or was this input heavy? What kind of methods were they using? Because I will say, using this sort of using a more of an input based method that I've sort of strung together myself based on YouTube Georgian stuff I could find on YouTube, like cookery videos that we've looked at on this very stream from the channel called Gourmania. And then also from Georgian State TV, there's like a Georgian as a second language class for primary school kids, and I looked at that a bit, and then also some books like reading what was it, Wage, Labor, and Capital in Georgian, and Shevitz Ablob Chadraki, a Georgian introductory chess book. And I would say, using that, stringing together a sentence I can do. There's not a whole lot of sentences I can string together, but I found that actually I got a fair bit out of that, and I think if I continue that, I will probably continue to get a fair bit out of it. So I'm kind of curious, when he's saying that didn't go well, what kind of methods that we're using.
So I realized,
especially because Richard is somebody who can definitely, given I don't know much about his methods, but I've seen the results, and languages. He's generally somebody you would say is good with languages.
Well, no, I can't really speak this. And then I went into analysis mode and sort of thought about the whole thing. What are the reasons why this is happening? Well, first of all, Georgian's not the easiest of languages to learn.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. It's not the easiest of languages to just pronounce either, because there are quite a lot of difficult sounds to make.
They like to pile consonants on top of each other. It is an orgy of consonants all of the time.
Back to back as well within the words. But also, the other factor was I didn't ever hear Georgian. I'd never actually met a Georgian speaker at that point.
Okay. That's definitely going to play into it. How many Georgians are there in Sweden? I've met maybe 4 or 5 Georgian speakers in my life. 2 of them at a Georgian restaurant in Prague.
I think it's really important when you have these moments in your life where you don't succeed in something you set out to do in the beginning, or it doesn't turn out the way you expected it to turn out, to really look inwards and think, okay, well, what are the reasons for that? Is it just down to me? Or is it also down to the fact that...
the thing about Georgian is there's actually so few people learn it
that probably everybody who's using textbooks is going to be familiar with the same collection of textbooks.
You know, it's not really a fit for my life. And so I had to agree that that was what it was. And it made my failure in learning Korean a lot easier to deal with.
Richard, let me just say, if you somehow happen to be watching this, first of all, hello, nice to see you again. It was nice meeting you at the last Polyglot Gathering, briefly. But if you want to have another go at Georgian, I could put together a little sort of lesson plan that I think probably you could probably make some progress in it without a huge amount of effort in being involved in it. I'm not saying I haven't gotten very far in it, you know, but it sounds like what I've done in has actually given your proven facility with languages, you probably actually make some progress that you didn't manage to make on that course. So, yeah, if you'd be interested in doing some kind of a collab around that, hit me up.
Later on, I did Korean as well. I was going to do it for a year. I did study it for a year in online groups. I had courses that I did at a college as well online. And again, it was very basic, but you know, the sort of level I ended up with, and it was a bit better than Korean, I would say. But now it's all completely gone, and you kind of have to then live with the fact that you'll learn something and it will completely disappear. And you can feel bad about the fact that
it may not completely disappear, like from active knowledge, maybe. But if you get back into it, I would imagine you'd probably find that some of it was still there.
You've put in this effort to learn, and you've been showing up on week on week. You've been trying to learn the vocabulary, you've been trying to get the grammar right, trying to actually speak the language, and then it just all falls down.
Like, I mean, I will say, with Georgian specifically, my first attempt at Georgian was in, like, 1999, 2000. Around that time. And then I sort of gave it up because I couldn't find any of the kind of resources that I like to work with. I mean, this is before YouTube. This is, like, I mean, there wasn't much of a Georgian internet. So a lot of the stuff that I generally like to work with, I couldn't get. And so I just kind of put it down, and then like 23 years later, really, I was like, hey, why don't I do Georgian again? That would be interesting. See what there is now. And in that time, I mean, I didn't make a huge amount of progress, but like I can read, you know, sort of an A2, B1 kind of Georgian reader, and I understand a fair bit of it, and in stuff that deals with more advanced material, you know, a more advanced reader, like materials for like native speakers that deal with stuff that I know about, I can actually understand reasonably well. Like, I don't know, maybe a third to a half of what I read. So, and the stuff came back. Like I remembered the alphabet. That was like the one thing that I remembered from 20 years before. It was and certain like aspects of how certain things, like the very basic vocabulary I picked up, and some basics about what the verbs do. The verbs are one of the complicated things about Georgian. So it can come back to you if you invite it out.
And this is where, again, the self-reflection and why is it falling down? What's going on? Can I just live with the fact that I explored the language and enjoyed that process and enjoy it for what it was? Of course,
I would hope so.
Possible for everyone, and I get that. And this is why, when I talk to people about language learning, we explore the whole question about language learning, and not just the how you actually learn it. We look at everything to do with it.
I would hope you'd be able to just live with
Absolutely.
The fact that you
I think
explored
it's
something.
Not as discussed,
because it's a cool
but
thing to
many
have
people
done.
have the best intentions starting out with learning a language, and then along the way, for practicality, for time reasons, it just doesn't work out like you had imagined. I just spoke to someone the other day who had learned English and Spanish and wanted to tackle Japanese so they could watch anime without subtitles. That was their dream. But then said, man, I didn't study for a week and I already forgot half the kanji I learned last week. It's just so taxing. So extremely, extremely relatable. Thank you, Richard. So now we'll go to the Italian Stallion. Tell us about any language learning failures you've had, good sir.
Okay, which one is that?
Which Italian stallion are you referring
Yeah,
to?
same question.
The southern one, the southern one. We got the northern in Finland.
Oh,
Okay, and the other one in Poland. To me, it's pretty simple. When it comes to learning a language, my biggest failure has without a doubt been Japanese, because of a lot of reasons. But I think one of the main reasons was that it was the first language that had a different syntax. So the way you form sentences, and that kind of threw me off completely because I was using translation. As you know, I used the bidirectional translation at the beginning, and then I was using Asimo, which, to be fair, was not very good. So, to make a long story.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've heard that. I have like one Asimil textbook. I have El Catalán Sin Esfuerzo, which I picked up, I think, when I was in Barcelona. Like, one of two things that I picked up in Barcelona. I lost a whole bunch of stuff in Barcelona because I got robbed twice in one day. But I did pick up two things as well. But, yeah, I mean, the method didn't strike me as... I wasn't impressed with it.
Story short, similar to Richard's story, to Richard's point, after a year or a year and a half, I couldn't string a sentence together, or better, stringing a sentence together required a lot of mental energy. I remember I hopped on a call with my Japanese tutor, and I was quite surprised and kind of, not disgusted, but discouraged by the fact that, hey, I've been learning 10 languages and now Japanese is so difficult.
Yeah,
and,
but I mean, there's also... I don't put a whole lot of stock in the State Department's figures on exactly how long it takes to learn a particular language or something like that. I think there are lots of caveats to take that with, but I think the ratios are more or less accurate. The fact that it takes way longer to get to a similar level in Japanese than it would take to get to, than, say, German or Vietnamese for an English native speaker. I think that is reasonable because there is a whole lot you have to get used to in Japanese. And part of that is the way phrases are constructed, and part of that is like the writing systems. There's a lot of effort involved in that. So, I mean, I wouldn't even call that a failure. If you find you've worked on it for a year and you haven't gotten that far, I mean, you haven't gotten as far as you have in other languages that you've learned, I wouldn't call that isn't a failure at all. That's just par for the course with Japanese.
I have dropped other languages in the past, like Romanian or Danish. These are languages that have like kind of disappeared as of now. But it's not because I did not know how to learn. Japanese is different. Japanese is kind of a girl who just turned me down when I was courting her. I had been courting her for 2 years, and then all of a sudden she turned me down, and I was just disappointed. But it like the base lesson is that you always have to be flexible when it comes to language learning. If something doesn't work, well, then you have to try something different. So I know now for a fact that if I went back to Japanese, I know how to learn it now. Like massive input plus, simplifying sentences. We're not going to go into this now. But I think...
I will say his translation approach that he mentioned, the bidirectional translation thing, that is very similar to one thing that was very helpful to me with Japanese. Like, there's a series called Power Japanese by Tuttle Publishing. And one of the best things about it is that it has all these example sentences. And it has the Japanese, it has the phonetic Japanese, and it has the English, and sometimes it will actually break it down syntactically as well. And it really helps give you, it helps you to get a hang of exactly how phrases are constructed in Japanese. Because good translations, good idiomatic translations, help you to understand. I mean, because the way Japanese works, the way Japanese turns a phrase is just different. And you just have to get used to that, and you have to, if you're trying to
construct things like literally word for word based on how you would do it in English or German or Italian or whatever, it's just gonna be weird. It's going to sound weird. It's going to sound translated because Japanese just works differently. That it has a different toolkit to work with. And looking at good idiomatic translations of Japanese really can help you sort of develop the flexibility you need, I find. That was my experience.
You know, people talk about mistakes or failures. I think it's just another way to learn. You know, you just try something.
So far, neither of these things I would actually call a language failure. Like, Richard discovered that a language that is really hard, both in terms of getting the things that you need to get used to, and in terms of getting good resources for as well, that he didn't get very far in that. And Luca discovered that a language that just statistically takes longer to learn than most commonly studied languages for native speakers of Indo-European languages took him longer. Like, I think these are both just matters of realizing that a thing is more challenging than you realized. And then I would call it a failure.
Something. It's like being a scientist, and your life is like a giant playground.
I mean, that's absolutely valid. I would agree with that.
You see whether something...
Like, I mean, I see, like, as I've said, and people who watch this stream will almost certainly heard me say this more than once, like, I didn't know anything about Crashin until just a couple of years ago. But I had just spent much of my life, like, virtually my entire life, since I was like 5 years old practically, kind of trying to learn languages and noticing things that worked for me, noticing things that didn't work for me, and just gradually putting together things that, an approach based on the stuff I was finding that actually worked. And, it's just, it's been a very long period of experimentation. And now, like, you get to benefit from the results of that experimentation.
Works or not, and then you try something, you tweak things, and you try something new. I'll go back to Japanese. But again, to make a long story short, Japanese has been my biggest failure. And just one more thing, Stefan was, talking about being an adult, having a family, having a lot of commitments, health things. This has been impacting my life as well. The more languages you learn, the easier it becomes to learn languages, in part, not all the time, but the more difficult it becomes to maintain languages, especially at a higher level. We can talk about this later.
Well, I mean, there are things you can do, though. There are things you can do, like, passively, to kind of maintain. Because, I mean, once you actually get yourself to a certain level, I mean, you're just going to be at that level. But, I mean, maintaining, you can do things like just have, like, the news on in, a language that you've already learned fairly well, and just have that on in the background. Just passive things that you can sort of use time that you're already dedicating to something else can be helpful there, I find.
If you call it failure, I failed at, and I still fail at maintain all my languages. 5 of them are just in the back burner, and it's okay. It's the way life.
Again, I really agree with Luca that failure is a great way to frame it. For one thing, because none of these things are definitive failures. Like, even if we take the idea that this is these are failures, which I disagree with. Like, as Luca was just saying, he could go back to Japanese and now he's got a good idea of what he'd do. Well, then it's not over. Like, there isn't a definitive result. There is an interim result that you discovered that it was more challenging than you thought it was going to be. And that the methods you were approaching with didn't really quite do what you needed them to. And now you got and now you're going to have another approach. You know more about it. You can go back and do it. I mean, so there's no definitive failure in that. That's, you learned useful things that you can use in your next attempt at whatever.
Crumbles, it's the way life works.
Absolutely. To go back to that point, for anyone who's unaware, with all these polyglots, whether they know 4 or 5 languages or they're teetering on 15 to 20 languages, it's a lot of dedication and time, and we'll get into the details about maintaining them, let alone learning new languages. But folks, do not feel bad if you feel like you've neglected your languages, because it's just a reality. Even Luca.
I mean, really, no, you don't feel bad about any of this. It's like, really, it's, I mean, the guilt that is involved, any guilt that you're feeling over just not being able to do certain things, like when we're talking about just in terms of language learning, that is just a totally unproductive thing to be feeling. It's like, you couldn't do it. Yeah, it would be nice if you could have, but there's other stuff and there's stress, and I mean, the just complete like fucking crucible of fuckery that is the world that you're also got going on in the background all the time. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's going to affect your ability to concentrate on stuff. That's just how that is. It's not something to feel guilty about. It's just something, it's a reality you just kind of have to work around.
Who is super fascinated by languages. I see him struggle, especially in the past couple of years, with maintaining that same burning passion and that same systematic approach to learning languages. So, thank you, Luca. And now, David, tell us your biggest language learning failure.
Excitable dog is being excited.
You lost David, or I lost you guys. I don't know if you can.
Alex, you broke up. You broke. I lost you for a second there, Alex. What was the last thing you said?
What is your biggest language learning failure?
Well, I would say that the biggest failure that I've experienced so far, I wouldn't say it's as much of a failure as it is I failed to recognize early enough in my Chinese studies in particular that there was more that I could be doing. And the reason was that I was sticking to...
I mean, I can't help noticing that so far we've had 3 people talk about things that, talk about failures, and every one of them is something that you would generally be considered to be on the hard side. I mean, you got Georgian, which is like next level complicated to learn, both because finding people to talk with, finding good resources, and then dealing with like the pronunciation and how complicated every single aspect of it is. There's so much to get used to. You got Luca and Japanese. Japanese is not something easy. Like, that's not something that you can sort of dabble and get good at. If you have to actually really want it, because it's going to take time. It's going to be challenging, and you're going to realize various times along the line that you're not as good as you thought you were. That is something you've just got to expect. You will think that you are better than you are, and then you will, have sort of a bit of a rude awakening, hopefully not too rude of one, and you realize, oh, okay, it turns out I have a lot more to learn than I realized, because there's just a lot in Japanese to get used to. It is not something that an Indo-European speaker is going to find easy. And then Chinese, I mean, in many ways, you could say it's easier to deal with than Japanese, but you've still got to learn a shitload of characters, and you've got to deal with tones. So, like, none of these, when we're talking, I mean, all of these things are things that have like challenges that are going to be, some of them you can kind of expect in advance of starting, and others will become apparent as you do it. So, again, really not failures.
Blindly to a specific method, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this later.
Okay, and now I'm very curious.
Mentioned this, that the problem is you get this idea in your head, okay, this is how I'm going to learn now, and this is going to be the best way that I can possibly approach this. With Chinese in particular, and I know this is actually getting more popular now, it was ALG, or Automatic Language Growth, which was originally created for Americans who were stationed in Thailand to help them to learn Thai faster. I'm sure you guys have all heard of ALG.
Yeah, sort of
We were just talking about this, wasn't it last week? I had not actually heard of it, and then we were watching a thing with the Psycholingo looking at Angelo van Roya and Evil D, and everybody was talking about ALG, and it's like sort of... It struck me as kind of an oversimplified version of, like, sort of an input-based approach. One that is unusually passive. I mean, I think there's something to it. I mean, I think that, like, huge amounts of listening can be very helpful, but it depends on, it depends entirely on what you're listening to, what you are engaging with in that relatively passive way.
And it's becoming more popular because of a certain Spanish learning program, I think. Anyway, this was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that I read about this, and I'm like, okay, this is how I'm going to learn. I had never learned Chinese before. I'm like, this is how I'm going to learn. I'm not going to speak Chinese for a whole year. I'm just going to listen to it, and I stuck to that. The problem was that, don't get me wrong, my listening comprehension got very good. I think my pronunciation benefited quite a bit.
I mean, okay, so very good things. I mean, I hope he talks about, like, because, like, the guy that I've heard, the ALG advocate that I've heard, didn't really get into much detail about exactly how this is supposed to work. Like, I want to know, when you're talking about listening, do we have visuals? Is there anything to aid comprehension? Or is it literally you just got, like, a recording that you're listening to? I hope he talks more about that.
I really wish that I had started trying to speak earlier than a year, and I also wish that I had started learning the characters earlier on. So my
yeah,
point
I
here,
mean, one thing I'd heard is that ALG like frowns on reading, and that is one thing I disagree with. This I find reading as a source of input, and I'm not alone in this. Like the research around like input based, around comprehensible input, also shows this. Reading is very useful. It helps you. It actually helps you develop and acquire grammar better than just listening. So I'm a big supporter of like reading as early as you can. Actually, in fact, I mean my approach tends to be very reading heavy very early on.
is that I see it as a failure. Not it was worth doing the experiment so I could see for myself whether or not this method works, and it does work for what it's worth. At the same time, I wish, and that's what I see as a failure, I wish that I had not just stuck to it for its own sake, but rather actively questioned what it was that I was doing, and then.
Yeah. So again, we got another thing. That's not a great. That's not a great freeze frame of him. So I've moved a couple of frames further, but I mean, again, none of this stuff is really a failure. It's like an experiment that yielded unexpected results and will allow for further development. I mean, all good things as far as I'm concerned. And it's interesting to hear them talk about them.
So that I could have learned more language.
Great, thank you. I think this shows that there's no one method to every single language. It all depends upon which language you're learning, what's your native language, and the different type of approach you have to take to tackle those languages. So being flexible, being open-minded is really important, guys. Don't, you can't die on a hill for this is the only method. I think all four of these polygons.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things, this is where I like to point out that a lot of the time you hear people talk about comprehensible input as if it were a method, when actually it's an ingredient. It is an ingredient that is there in every method that is going to work. How exactly you work with that input is going to depend on all sorts of things. It's going to depend on the learner, it's going to depend on the teacher, it's going to depend on the language as well. Yeah, I mean, so when we say comprehensible input is the essential thing, that does not actually limit us too much in terms of exactly what we do with it, how we engage with it, and what kind of input it is, and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of room there.
I would agree that there is no one single method. There are some principles, but never truly one single method.
Yeah.
Now, just a quick question for you guys, and we'll start with Luca for this one. If you could go back and become a polyglot from scratch, what would your approach be? What would you do differently than you actually did? So if you could go back and start from scratch,
the wild thing is, I think everybody there is roughly around my age, so it's probably true of everybody there as well. But, like, the things that I've found the most useful are things that simply did not exist. With a couple of small exceptions, they were things that simply did not exist when I was starting out. Because when I was starting out, it was the 1980s. Like, you couldn't order translated editions of like John Grisham books in the 1980s. He wasn't writing them yet. And, those days, you couldn't go, like, online and order the shit. You'd have to have a catalog. You'd have to phone around to different bookshops to find one. It would be extremely complicated. Like, so a lot of this stuff, if I would, if I were to go back to when I really kind of started on this, which, again, we're talking sort of early, mid-80s, literally was not possible. I would have to, a level of modification would be quite complicated. Though, the closest thing is, like, the public library in Cincinnati has a really good untranslated works section, which includes some translated editions of things. I remember there being Stephen King's Misery there, in Italian, Hunt for Red October in Russian, and a few other things like that. But for the most part, yeah.
You do. Luca, we'll start with you, good sir.
The thing I would do would be to get more input, as far as I'm concerned, because I started, for example, at school, in middle school, I was doing a lot of extra drill, like grammar drills and this stuff. Now, I know for a fact that input is one of the most important things, and that's what I would change. And also try to get...
same here. Like, that that has been really the result of all of this sort of experimentation that I've done over the years. I basically sort of replicated Gratian without knowing that he was doing it. But yeah, it would just be as much input as possible. Of course, the first language I tried to learn was Russian. In the 1984, 1985, there was fuck all you could really do for that. Like, the closest thing, there was a BBC show called, Learn Russian, something like that. I put it on, I have it in my, playlist of stuff to react to on stream. I spent an entire night trying to figure out what the show was called, but that it had some, like, Russian dialogues on it. It was on PBS in the, like, mid-'80s. And it took me forever, and that was, like, the most input. That and Spies Like Us. You couldn't even rely on movies with Russians in them, because a lot of them, they didn't bother actually trying to get Russian dialogue. Like, they just had things that sounded Russian. Spies Like Us is an exception there. They did an excellent job with their Russian. I've rewatched that now that I actually speak Russian. Like, when I was like just starting out when I first saw it back in the 80s. And I couldn't really do much with it. Now, coming back to it, they did a really good job with that. But a lot of these things, in the 80s, finding that kind of stuff, not easy.
Contact with native speakers as soon as possible. I think that
definitely helps. Also, a thing that
I am not a proponent of speaking from day one, but for example, as of now, when I was in Rome, I started having group lessons, something contrary to Richard, I never do. Like, I don't attend classes. I'm a very lone wolf when it comes to language learning. Or either I have conversations, for example, with a tutor, and a year or even 2 years after starting to learn the language. But I have to say that in the case of Turkish, I've been learning the language. I started learning in January 2024, but I really started learning the language seriously this year. And I started attending these classes, and I have to say that having a real person in front of you talking makes it it completely changes your experience from an emotional standpoint. Just you'll learn, you'll absorb the language much better. Of course, it's not always easy to have a person, like especially if you live in the United States or in Australia.
Although, I mean, there are some contexts in which, like with Turkish in Western Europe, you can do fairly well, because there are you can find places where you can interact with people in Turkish. Like in Berlin, I never wanted for that, because like you could go to like Turkish restaurants and things like that, get a donut or something, and they like my experience was like people were really kind of chuffed to bits to hear somebody who obviously was not Turkish, trying to have the interaction in their language. So there are places where you can kind of do that. Even I would imagine Rome. I didn't see any Turkish restaurants. I wasn't really looking for them. I was in Rome. I wanted to just eat as much like fucking Italian food made in Italy as I could. So I wasn't really looking. But I'm sure there must be Turkish restaurants. They're everywhere in Europe.
Hey, I've got to find a Greek guy. I've got to talk to him face to face. It's difficult. But that's what I would do if I could go back in time. I would try to seek, human contact with native speakers as soon as possible, because whether you speak with them in the language or not, you still get inspired. You spend time with them, their culture, you understand them. It's a completely different ballgame when you have contact with native speakers. That's what I would change. I would integrate it into my learning sooner rather than later. The rest, as I said, maybe for Japanese I would just do more input, because I didn't do that, and I would use a different resource. But in general, if I could go back in time, massive input from the get-go and getting to know native speakers who speak the language, whether you speak with them in their native language or not at the beginning doesn't matter. It's just the human contact that makes it like it.
Yeah, that definitely does help. I mean, it gives you an emotional context to the thing.
Continue learning the language, especially at the beginning where everything is kind of shaky and you don't know whether you're going to succeed or not. You're going to get over the hump and really start speaking the language. That's my 2 cents.
Excellent. Thank you. What about you, Richard? Knowing what you know now, if you had to go back in time, start from scratch as an aspiring polyglot, what do you do differently?
I have a very different life philosophy. I don't believe in regret. So I don't find it a very useful emotion. And honestly, the reason why is because knowing what I know now, I wouldn't be able to change what I did in the past anyway, because it's all based on new technology and things that have developed over the years. The world has changed.
Yeah.
So even if I could go back and tell myself as a younger person, do this, do that, the only things I had available were the things I was using, which was pen, paper, books.
Yeah, exactly.
All I had.
Like fucking cassette tapes. Yeah, I mean, very true. Like, and with languages that I sort of temporarily abandoned, like Georgian, like if I went back to when I first started to have an interest in it, the problem was the same one. I couldn't find the kind of resources because they just weren't available. I mean, unless you just went to fucking Georgia.
I could get cassette tapes. That was basically it. Yeah, I mean, the internet wasn't a thing for me until I went to university. So
I mean, like the minute the internet became a thing for me, I mean, it wasn't even really the internet. It was BBSs and FidoNet forums. And the minute I actually had access to that on my 8086 PC with its running DOS 6.0 and its monochrome monitor, I was immediately using it for language learning purposes. I was doing book exchanges. I would run into people in Star Trek forums in other countries, like in Norway and Finland and Sweden and Italy, and I was like, okay, there are books that I want to get that I can't get here. Just translated editions of stuff. Can you send them? And if you have a book that you'd like, I'll send it to you. And I got a lot of people were very down with that. It was very cool. Like the minute these things became available, I immediately started finding ways to use them for language stuff. So that is the real challenge.
I don't know what I would change, And as I was saying, even when I talk about failure, I can say I failed at doing something because an original goal was something I didn't reach. So therefore, in that respect, I failed, I say. But even that, when we were talking about that before, I would always internalize that as a self-reflective moment where I can then look at why that happened and how I would change things and what I got out of it, actually. Because even when you fail at something that you had as an original goal, you usually get something else out of it.
Yeah.
So the regret,
including
isn't
ideas for the next
really
attempt,
there for me in that way. It's always this additional opportunity or a changed moment or a learning, a chance for learning for me to really then move forward and move on and adapt and change and be dynamic. And so, yeah, I don't think there would be anything that I would do differently. I'd like to let my younger self go through and make the same, go on the same paths that I went on and discover those things. Because you never know what would happen if you tried to interfere.
Yeah, also true. Like, I mean, I arrived at methods that really work well just through seeing what did and didn't work and doing what I could to maximize my use of things that I was finding did work. So it worked out well. I wouldn't necessarily change anything except, like if there were like a source of some of these books that like that was the difficulty. Getting the kind of materials that I find most useful back then was not easy. You'd have to, I mean, maybe in like New York or something like that, a much bigger city with a lot more international bookshops. Like Chicago or something like that, you'd probably do better. But in fucking Cincinnati, no.
True. It's like the butterfly effect, right? Or like going back in time,
also, I was
you
like
do something,
5.
the dinosaurs don't exist. We don't know. But Richard, I think your statements embody the belief that it's either you win or you learn. There really is no losing or no regrets.
Exactly.
So, excellent. Thank you. Let's go to David then. David, would you go back and change anything? Do you want to mess with history or not?
I'm a bit scared,
history.
To be honest.
Well, I thought that the way that Richard put it was actually very fitting, because if you go back, most of the things I do differently now are also based on currently available technologies.
Yeah.
But I had the good fortune when the first language that I learned to speak fluently was German, and that was primarily thanks to input. And so I kind of got lucky that early on I realized how powerful it is to actually get loads and loads of input. And not only that, but as I started to learn Dutch while I was living in Germany, and then I traveled to the Netherlands, and I found out very quickly that Dutch people generally speak English really well. And I'm like, oh, you guys must start learning English super early here. And they're like, no, they're like, no, like 7 or 8. I'm like, wait. That's the same age that Germans start learning English. Why do you guys speak so much better English?
Oh, and I'm guessing what he's going to say is that they don't do dubbing in the Netherlands for the most part. They tend to be in the sort of North European subtitle sphere, where they will have like TV shows from Britain and the US or whatever. But instead of dubbing them, they will use subtitles so you actually are hearing what they're saying.
And they're like, well, I don't know, we don't translate anything. We just watch everything in the original with subtitles in our language. I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. You just hear it day in, day out. More or less like a native speaker would, right? It's obviously slightly less input, but you're still hearing it. You're really familiar with the sound of the language. And so I wish that I had, I just wish that I had done more of it. I mean, I realized that early on, but I was still kind of clinging to the ideas that I had got from school, primarily that I needed to be doing grammar drills. And, all of these other kind of traditional things that are often, and I should avoid translation at all costs, and all these other things that it was very difficult to kind of get away from. So I have to agree.
No, it's interesting because, like, my school language learning experience was, there was a lot of grammar drills and shit like that. But we did a lot of translation. actually. So I guess later on somebody said, okay, maybe don't do translation.
With Luca there, that I wish that I had gone ahead and gotten more input and also started kind of developing more methods out from that input heavy kind of approach earlier on.
Excellent. So that means we have two in the camp of more exposure, more input. We have an individual, no regrets whatsoever. Let's do it all over again. And now, Stefano, we'd like to know, what's your take?
I do have a small regret, but now I fear going back and changing things because the world might explode. Because
I mean, there's a fair chance of that anyway. I mean, look at it.
Jokes apart,
it's not like things are not fucked up
if
right
I
now.
could go back in time, the only thing that I would change would probably be to focus a little bit less on the written language, like textbook language, and try and look for how people actually use the language in everyday life much earlier. This is something that I maybe I couldn't do in the early days because of the same reason that Richard mentioned, which is the technology was completely different. When I started learning languages, we only had textbooks and tapes and sometimes CDs. Wow. But
okay, so
still,
we're talking about
think
roughly
that I focused
the
a little
same
bit too
time.
much on textbook language.
Well, and depending on what language you were into, there were books you could get and things that were about learning like slang and stuff like that around that time. Because I guess if there were CDs, we're talking late 80s, early 90s. And there were a few series like that. There's like there's a book called Merde and Merde encore by, I think the author is nom de plume is Geneviève, and it's all like French slang and stuff like that. And you could find that stuff if you knew where to look. And you had really good libraries and bookstores. You could find that kind of thing, and that was the stuff that always interested me as well. So I realized that was the sort of thing that you weren't getting in school, and was probably much more useful and much more authentic as well. So that's something I immediately, the minute I realized there were resources for it, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to just find everything I can about this now.
Like textbook Japanese, for example, that is really, really different from the way that people actually speak the language. Same thing with Finnish, of course. When I learned Finnish, I learned the written, the written version of Finnish, but spoken Finnish is almost completely different.
Yeah, I mean, it is like literally practically another language. Like, I have good Finnish reading knowledge, but when I started watching like Finnish language TV series on Netflix, everybody's speaking puhekieli, the spoken way, and it didn't sound a thing like what I was used to. It took me a while to really get used to hearing that, because all sorts of things are different. Like, I mean, that is one thing. You basically have to learn two languages to learn one language when it comes to Finnish.
Not as much as Japanese, but still. So I had to kind of relearn Finnish, relearn Japanese.
Absolutely.
To actually get a grip on how people were using the language and to be able to understand and to function, to communicate with people, because I was like a written book. You know, I was talking like a written book, and this just wouldn't work. So if possible,
we're going to be wrapping up in just a few minutes, but good to see you.
How people really speak the language much earlier in my language learning process.
You know, that makes a lot of sense, because I think of it this way, like, if someone is learning English and the only thing they're exposed to are like 1950s gangsters movies and like, hey there, buddy, yeah, better watch out there.
First of all, that would rock, and is, I mean, that there's a bit in there, actually. I think
that when it's not spoken like that whatsoever today, it would be quite jarring for them. So
yes, but on the other hand,
on the other hand, yeah, it would be quite entertaining on a certain level.
Interesting. So you guys see the polyglots here have very different experiences, maybe some similar mindsets, but obviously, hopefully you guys are relating to what's being said. So now we're going to move into a more personal topic in terms of what is your actual approach to learning and maintaining multiple languages?
And I think that, okay, reasonable timing here. I think this is where we're going to leave it off for today, since we're kind of closing in on time anyway, and it just seems like a reasonably good stopping point. I think we're going to come back to this tomorrow, because this is really quite interesting, and I'm enjoying it. I hope you all are enjoying it as well. I am now going to see about eating things and enjoying that. Thank you to everyone who joined in. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I will be back at 4:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time tomorrow for more of the same. I hope to see you then. Have a good evening.